In blue state Maryland, where Democratic events often look more like family reunions, there's an unusually tight race that could determine the balance of the Senate. Democrats out in full force.
And the key to the Senate majority runs through Maryland.
Asking voters to send Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks down to Washington and not their popular former governor, Republican Larry Hogan. Vice President Kamala Harris holds a 30-point lead here. A new poll has Alsobrooks up by 11, but others have Hogan within the margin of error. And his approval ratings were as high as 70% when he was governor. How do you reach the split-ticket voters who are planning to vote for VP Harris, but who like Larry Hogan? He was their two-term governor.
Yeah, you know what? This race is much bigger than Larry Hogan. Larry Hogan was recruited by Mitch McConnell because they share a goal in mind. They want Republicans to have control of the Senate.
Voters here say this contest comes down to reproductive rights and who they trust to reject a possible national abortion ban. Maryland has enshrined abortion rights, and the state's clinics serve women forced to travel from out of state.
I come from a state where a lot of the politicians didn't agree with a woman choosing her own medical rights. Women should have that choice.
Hogan, who's endorsed by but has long feuded with Trump, argues voters are tired of division and want to elect someone who'll stand up to both parties.
Hogan will be in the middle of the action, representing the center.
His message to voters, he'll be a sensible voice focused on issues like veterans' needs. But also Brooks warns he won't be as independent on abortion or gun reform in a polarized Senate. How do you convince people to not believe a guy they've known for a long time?
Well, you know what? His record speaks for itself. But what we know also is that if he's elected, we'll never have a vote on Roe because the Republicans in the Senate will never bring it up for a vote.
In 2022, Governor Hogan attempted to veto and then withheld funding from a law to train additional health care workers to perform abortions, citing safety concerns.
Thanks for being here.
In an Axios interview earlier this year, Hogan declined to say how he would vote on IVF or to codify Roe v. Wade.
So is that yes?
Whether it's needed or
yes or no?
No, it wasn't a yes or no.
He now says he will vote to codify Roe. His campaign suggested a date and location to speak with NBC News, then said he was unavailable the day of the potential interview. His team told NBC News it's important for the health of our democracy to have two functioning parties, and that as governor, he made sure access to abortion was never a question for Maryland women. And others aren't sure they trust Alsobrooks. A CNN report finding she claimed improper tax deductions on 2 properties. She tells NBC News these were oversights made during a move and as she took over payments on her grandmother's home, and that she's correcting the payments.
I think you need somebody that's a straight shooter. And unfortunately, in today's world, that is few and far between.
And for many Marylanders, Hogan has the familiar face.
I'm going to vote for Hogan just because I thought he did a good job for governor. I don't really know what Alsobrooks kind of is doing.
Even some Alsobrooks supporters still have affection for him.
I liked him as a governor. I'm not anti-Larry Hogan, but I'm anti what he represents.
They're just not sure he should hold that potentially tie-breaking vote in the U.S. Senate. So there's going to be an amendment on the ballot that's probably going to drive a lot of Marylanders to the polls, and that is question 1. And it's all about reproductive freedom. The question is whether or not women should be able to make decisions and effectuate decisions around their pregnancies, something that Marylanders support in a large majority, a major majority. And so that is sort of an ironic part of this race, right? That this is a state where abortion is already protected. It has become a safe haven for women in states nearby who don't have access to that care, who now need to travel in. But there's so much anxiety there about what could be lost. And so you're seeing voters who have what might sound like a very safe situation or set of circumstances when it comes to that question, actually acting to make sure that in the future, if the balance of power changes, new lawmakers come in and want to restrict abortion, that they would be unable to do so. And that really is emblematic of post-Roe America. You see states like Maryland trying to be 2 steps ahead of what's to come.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.